And we recognize that God had a tithing plan for the poor that is actually very effective. It's a very effective solution if we were to be obedient to it. I want to just give you some data real quick, and then we're going to go ahead and reread this chapter. But in the American church, okay, I'm just talking about American church. If all churchgoers tithe, right now, only about 2% of people that consider themselves regular churchgoers, only about 2% of those people are tithing. Again, this is just the American church. If all churchgoers tithed, it would be an increase of what we receive right now on an annual basis of $168 billion. The price tag for alleviating the world's poverty, according to World Vision right now, is $65 billion per year. So the increase of the tithe, just being obedient to what God has already told us to do, is more than enough to solve the world's poverty 3 times over. And so if the American church followed God's plan for tithing into poverty, the world of poverty could be eliminated. And not to mention what we could accomplish if we were talking about the global church. I'm just talking about the American church. The funding for poverty has already been built into God's plan. Yet we are not obedient to God's plan, and we see the impact of that. And, I think every time I go on a mission trip with somebody and somebody says something about this, I will ask some very real questions when they are grieved in their spirit by what they're seeing. I will say to them, how did you get to this trip here? And many of them say, well, I fundraised, or I just used my bonus from work, or whatever it is. And they would pay and they would get to this trip. And I'm not saying this to guilt anybody, but many of those same people, I will ask them, how much did you tithe this past year? I can't tell you how many of them say, well, tithing, I'll give here and there, but tithing isn't a regular part of my spiritual rhythm. And I would say that you have no business going on a mission trip if you're not regularly tithing. And we can get into tithing a different time. And I'm not even tithing. Tithe doesn't come to me. So I'm not making anything off of this. I am saying that it is God's mandate that when we are blessed financially or with our crops or whatever it is, our time, our energy, our effort, we are permitted to keep 90% of that. But that last 10% belongs to God. Actually, I would argue it's the first 10% that goes to God. But when people go on a mission trip and they're brokenhearted for the impoverished, but they are not tithing, they're part of the problem. And so I'm going to reread verses 1 and 2, and I hope that you can take to heart some of those things that I've explained and remember that when you read these passages. Read what's in Jesus's heart when he says this.